Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. You know, folks, with this Madeline Soto case, we're all sort of hanging on at the edge of our seats, waiting for new information. And one of the things that we've all come to expect is the results of the autopsy. And yesterday, without really much fanfare, a message came out from the medical examiner's office, and I'll show you on the thumbnail here. Medical examiner won't release autopsy findings because it's domestic violence equals homicide. So they just told you the manner of death, didn't they? Inadvertently, without telling you the manner of death, they just told you the manner of death. Medical examiner won't release autopsy findings because it's domestic violence. That equals a homicide. The definition of homicide is death caused by another. And of course, there's many ways to do that. But they're saying it's a domestic violence murder, which means one of the people in that household that lived in that household caused the death of Madeline Soto. It's that simple. And most of us believe this person who you see up on the screen right now is the person. Under Florida first-degree murder, under Florida Statute Section 78204, murder is broadly defined as the unlawful killing of a human being. The degree of murder is based on how murder is carried out. Florida law states that homicide is a first-degree murder when the killing was carried out with intent and prior thought or planning, often referred to as premeditation. A homicide may also be considered first-degree murder if a killing was committed during the course of committing another crime, including, among others, arson, sexual battery, robbery, burglary, kidnapping, aggravated child abuse, aggravated abuse of an elderly person, or a disabled adult. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it obviously qualifies in this case, is that this is a first-degree murder. So even though the medical examiner went through great pains to say, Florida law says I'm not allowed to release the manner of death because it's a juvenile and it's a domestic violence case. But he just did, or she just did, whoever the medical examiner is, because they just told us it's a murder, didn't they? They inadvertently told us that this is a murder. So remember, we've gone over the manner of death is homicide, suicide, accidental, natural, or undetermined. So 5 ways for manner of death: homicide, suicide, natural, accidental, or undetermined. This is a homicide, right? It's not a suicide. It's not accidental. It's not natural, and it's not undetermined. So the police know, you can bet the police know the manner of death. They're told it. We all know now because they inadvertently told us through that, through them saying we're not allowed to release the manner of death because under Florida law, you can't release the manner of death if it's a domestic violence and if it's a juvenile. You know, I have questions about that also, and in New York, and that's what I don't mean to ever imply that New York is better, has better laws or anything than any other state. But I believe that when someone's dead, usually that person no longer has an expectation of privacy because the person is no longer alive. So that's why I question this also, is like, are they hiding behind this law that they don't want to release this? Because usually when someone is dead, even if they're a juvenile, their expectation of privacy is over because the person's no longer alive. And that's something that I would question. But if that's the Florida law, they're going by it. But I can't help but say that in this case, and it says it all right there, medical examiner won't release autopsy findings because it's domestic violence equals a homicide. Now we get to the cause of death. And the cause of death, as you know, could be blunt trauma, strangulation, asphyxia, poisoning, gunshot, stab, anything like that. That is the cause. And it definitely differs from the manner. And that, I think, will have to come out if this case goes to trial, or even if Stefan Stearns pleads guilty. And I would find it hard to imagine that Stefan Stearns, if he is the perpetrator of this murder, which I think is a very high percentage that he is, I don't see him, if it does, I don't see them offering a plea deal. And number two, I don't see him pleading guilty, because this is a death penalty case. And therefore, the prosecutor, I don't think, is going to offer anything to this savage, who they already have 60 charges holding over him at Florida versus Stearns. And this was a while ago when the state attorney general issued these other charges: 8 counts of sexual battery on a child under 12, 5 counts of sexual battery with a child 12 to 18, 7 counts of lewd and lascivious molestation, 40 counts of unlawful possession of materials depicting sexual performance by a child, 10 or more images. So we all know how horrific this individual is. And that is the underlying felony that qualifies Stefan Stearns for the death penalty. Those horrific charges that we just saw. Someone in the chat brought up the other day, and I thought this is a distinct possibility because no one's telling us. Could he have pictures on his phone of Madeline when she was dead? Could that happen? Could that? And that would be like, oh my God. You talk about powerful, powerful evidence, but is that a possibility? Yeah, it is a possibility. So why is this bothering us? Because the Kissimmee police are taking their time and making sure they do everything correctly. They don't have any time frame. We have to file these charges right away because he's got all he can handle with the charges he has right now. But we, as the public, and we, as the people following this case, and we who want to see justice, we want to know that he's getting charged with this, don't we? We want to know. So, folks, you're about to enter true crime from a police perspective. And you're about to enter it off the cuff. You're about to enter the police off the cuff zone.
There has to be some common sense.
Yes, sir. They have the car stopped in 10th and Ranch Microbizer.
We still don't know who pulled the trigger.
You know, I always like to go into the chat and see what the people that follow this show are thinking, because sometimes you guys come up with some really good things in the chat. And look, I agree. Someone once said, that was a brilliant teacher, said one time that for my whole life, I'll always be a student. Once I stop learning, that's when I stopped growing. And I thought that was such a profound statement. I feel the same way about this. Although I have a lot of experience in this field, I can always be taught something. And sometimes you guys in the chat teach me something.